Hi guys, we're now moving on to chapter 5. So we're still looking at policing. So we did all the intro material 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to look at each individual aspect of the criminal justice system in more detail. So last week we started with policing and we covered the material from chapter 4. This week we're moving on to chapter 5. So we're going to be covering the material from chapter 5. We're going to break it into 3 lectures, but none of them are too long. So it's just the material breaks better into 3 sections. So there'll be 3 lecture videos. Okay, so let me share the first one. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about police duties and police organization. So last week we talked about what is the purpose of policing, why do we have police? And then this week we talked about why we have police, and then we talked about police jurisdiction. And then this week, we're going to move on and actually talk about how it's structured and how it's organized. We're going to talk about specific duties. We're going to talk about discretion and ethics that police have to use while they're performing their duties. And then we're going to talk about contemporary police issues. So that's what we're going to look at. So we're going to start today with police duties and organization. So the first thing I want to ask you, and hopefully remember, is what is a mission? So we talked about that in the first lecture for chapter 4. We talked about a mission. So remember, a mission is a goal or something they're trying to achieve. Okay. So when we talk about police organization, we have to remember that the organization is created so that the mission can be properly carried out. So if you remember, there are 4 things that are the main police missions. So enforce the law. So they have a main duty to try to enforce the law, prevent crime from occurring in the first place with preventative patrols and things like that, preserve the peace. We want to preserve the peace and to provide community services to the community. So we had already kind of talked about these are the 4 main missions of police. Now, so then the question is, how do they accomplish those missions? What are the things that police do on a day-to-day basis to accomplish all of those missions? And that's the police duties. Their duty is to accomplish the mission, work towards the mission. How do they do that? Well, they have to do certain things on a day-to-day basis to carry those out. Those are what we call operational strategies. So operational strategies are the strategies that police use on a day-to-day basis so that they can achieve their mission. Okay, so their mission is broad, general statement, and then they do things every day to achieve that mission. Those are their operational strategies, how they achieve those. What are some operational strategies? What are they actually doing? Number 1, patrols. Okay, so we know that they're doing patrols to catch people committing crimes. They're also doing preventative patrols so that if people see police, it might deter them from wanting to commit a crime because they don't want to get caught. So they do lots of reasons for patrol. Another, so they're closer in case there is a call that they can arrive quickly. So one of the main things they do is patrol. They also conduct criminal investigation. So once there is an actual crime that's committed, they have to go out and gather the evidence and actually investigate that crime. We talked about clearance rates when we talked about crime statistics for the uniform crime reports. They want to solve crimes. So not only do they want to investigate, they want to solve them or clear crimes, because agencies' clearance rate is an important thing. People want to have a good clearance rate and make sure department more reputable. So they work on arrests so that they can have good clearance rates. They also provide emergency responses. So 911 calls, car accidents, things like that. They're going to respond to those emergencies. And then don't forget that they provide support services to other departments. So they may run background checks, or they may provide other evidence or technical support. They may provide more manpower to different agencies that may need help with certain things. So those would be the different operational strategies that they carry out on a day-to-day basis. Now, they do all of these things using problem solving. So as a police officer, one of the main things that you're going to focus on is problem solving. You have to see a problem, you have to analyze it, you have to come up with the best solution. So problem solving is a huge thing that you have to be very familiar with if you're a police officer. Now, when you're talking about police organization and structure, you're talking about kind of two different things. When a police officer goes to work, they have certain things that are called line operations. So line operations are going to be the things in the field that a police officer is doing, the patrolling, the arresting, the investigating. It's the activities that are directly related to what you would think is policing. So if I said what does a police do, these would be the things that you would probably list, the line operations. But there's a lot of support operations that go on in an office also. You have the supervisors that are assuring that the officers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. You have scheduling. You have people keeping and maintaining evidence. You have custodians making sure that the facilities are kept clean. You may have assistants or professional assistants and things like that that are doing filing and typing and organization and calendars. So you have a lot of staff operations also that are providing support to the line operations. Okay, so you want to kind of think of both of those things. So for each of these, decide if you think they would be a line operation or a staff operation. So stop the video when you think you have them all, start the video, and we'll see if you got them right. Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I had the side with the answer. So cleaning the bathroom would just be staff operations. Fingerprinting a car, line operations. Writing a traffic ticket, line operations. Filing a letter in its folder, staff operations. Writing an arrest report, line operations. Arresting someone, line operations. So hopefully you got all of those correct. Okay. Now we said that they do all of these things also while using problem solving. So I want to just spend a few minutes talking about the problem solving method. Okay. When police are doing problem solving, they're using what's called the SARA method. So SARA stands for number 1, scan, number 2, analyze, number 3, respond, number 4, assess. So the first thing that the police officers are going to do is scan. They're going to try to get as much information as they can possibly gather. They want to know the who, what, where, when, how. If there's a 911 call, they want to know as much detail as possible for what they're trying to solve. So scanning is gathering information. They want to get as much information that they can. Once they have that information, then they have to analyze it and come up with what is the best solution for them. What should they be doing? So they gather as much information, then they process all that information and try to come up with what's the best approach to the situation. Many times there's going to be multiple different choices that the officer can do. They have discretion. They have the ability to choose. So the analysis is them going through those different options and really thinking about which one they think would best respond to this situation. Once they have all their choices, then they make a choice and choose which one they think is best, and then we respond. So they've gotten their information, they've looked at all their choices, they pick a choice, and then they respond. So they, based on the choice that they made, they have to use a certain response. And then after everything's over, they need to take a step back and they need to assess what they did. Is what they did a good response, or could they have done something different, or could they have done something better? Okay, so that's the assessment. You want the officers to kind of take a step back and really think about how they handled the situation and see if they believe they did it in the proper way. And it's not supposed to be judgmental. It's not supposed to get people in trouble. It's just that everybody should be constantly assessing how they're doing. A personal assessment. How did I do? Could I have done it better? What else could I have done to do it better? So those are the steps in the assessment. Okay, so police officers go through these steps all the time. It may go really quickly. They may go through them quickly in their brain, but they're going to have to go through each of these steps whenever they are trying to carry out their line operations and making discretionary choices. So what I want you to do is try to use this method. So you are told from dispatch that there is loud voices coming from a house. It sounds like breaking objects. The neighbor call believes that there are children in the home. You know from past experience that there are several instances of domestic abuse at that home. What do you do? Okay, so sorry, I just wanted to see if I had it written out. So the first thing is a scan. So write down if you're scanning, what facts do you know from this scenario? What do you know as a police officer when you're arriving at the scene, when you first get to the scene? What are the facts that you want to know? So you would list those down. You can stop it and list them down. The A, analysis. Now you're trying to figure out what are your choices. If you're a police officer and you're responding to this situation, what are some of the discretionary choices that you could make? What do you think that you could do in this situation? So stop the video and list some of your choices. What could you do in this situation? Now respond. Which one of those choices do you think is best? Which one do you think would work best? So you can stop the video and kind of make a choice. And then the last one you can't really assess because you're not carrying it out, but how would you assess it? If you had to look back, what would mean success to you? How would you say, yes, what I chose was the right response? How would you measure success in the situation? Okay, so the scanning, you know, there's a lot of voices, you know, there's a house, you know, there's breaking objects, you know, the neighbors told you that there may be children involved. You also know that there were lots of abuse cases in the past in that house. So what are your choices of what you can do? You can completely ignore it and do nothing, right? You could knock on the door and try to see if anybody answers and talk to them. You could pound on the door with guns drawn and go in with guns drawn, right? You could surround the house and order them to come out and try to get them out of the house so you're not going in. So you have lots of choices. Once you're in there, you could talk to them and you could just let them all go, try to calm them down and then leave. You could make an arrest. You could find out which one you think is causing the troubles and actually make a physical arrest and bring one of them in. So really, those are lots of different options that you may have in this situation. So then the response is, when you look at that list, which one do you think is best? And then finally, how would you assess that? Well, hopefully you have no more domestic abuse calls from that area. Maybe you try to get them help, you get them into counseling. So your measure of success would be to resolve the problem and probably in the long term resolve the problem, right? You want to resolve it not so that you just have to come back again tomorrow night. So measuring it may be that you have no more domestic abuse calls from that house. Okay. Now, one other thing you want to talk about when you talk about police organization is this idea of police management. So we think of police, when we say police, we think of the people out on patrol, giving tickets, making arrests, but there's a whole structure of police that are the bosses that are directing all of those actions. And that's police management. So police management is police administration. It's all the activities that's keeping the police organization functioning. So directing, controlling, and coordinating all of the police resources. So the police management may not be the people actually going to the call. These are the chiefs, the lieutenants, things like that, that may be directing what happens more from the police station. Now, certain times they may go out into the field, but for the most part, they're just going to be making sure that the system is running properly, that the resources are allocated where they're supposed to go, that police have the resources they need, all of those things, what they're doing, keeping track that their officers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's all police management. Okay. Now, when you're talking about police management, there's some basic terminology that you need to understand. So these are all just terms. The first one is chain of command. When you're talking about police administration, they follow a strict chain of command. That is the unbroken chain of whose boss is who. Okay. So chain of command is this person's boss goes, when you have an issue, you go to this person. When you have an issue, their boss goes to this person. What is the structure of command? So I'm a teacher. My command is next is a director. And then I have a dean of social science. And then I have the vice president of academic affairs. Then I have the president of the college. And then I have the board of trustees for the college. So it's the line of whose boss is who. Now with police administration, it's a very strict thing. It is pretty well known. You do not go above your boss. So if you have an issue, you should go only to your boss. You don't skip command and skip to your boss's boss. They follow a pretty rigid chain of command. Now, unity of command is the idea that every officer only has one main supervisor. Okay, so you don't want 15 bosses all telling you to do things so that you could be having lots of conflicting things to do. So the idea of unity of command is every officer only has one boss, and that one boss is the one that tells them what to do. Only one supervisor. And then we have span of control. Span of control is the number of people that one boss controls. Okay, so my span of control is my students in my class. The director's span of control are all the teachers. Okay, so how many people are they supervising? How many people are they sort of the boss of? Now, all of this is usually set out in what we call an organizational chart. An organizational chart is a chart that actually shows this whole structure, so everybody knows who they are reporting to. So this would be an example of an organizational chart, okay? So you have the chief here, assistant chief, and then it shows you the different divisions, and it shows you who reports to who. So this would be your organizational chart. So let's ask some questions about that. So if an officer has a problem, who in their chain of command do they go to? So we need to go here and we need to find officers. So right here are officers. So remember, chain of command is what? So think back, what did we say chain of command was? Chain of command is who you report to, who is your boss. So if you're an officer, who in chain of command do you report to? You report to your sergeant. Okay. What about this one? Unity of command. If you are a sergeant in the narcotics division, who is your boss? So we go to narcotics division. We need to find narcotics division. Okay. And if you're a sergeant, who is your boss? The lieutenant of criminal investigations. Okay. And then what about this? If you are a lieutenant in the patrol division, how many different units report to you? So we need the patrol division. You're a lieutenant. You have two different units. You have a unit of sergeants, and then underneath them, you have a unit of officers. So your span of control are all the sergeants and officers. They're all underneath you. Okay. So hopefully that helps you see and understand what these different terms mean. Okay, so that's it for the first one. It's not too long. So hopefully you understand those organizational structures. And then I will be back with the second lecture video. Thanks.